Welcome to today's webinar on postgraduate study options in archaeology, anthropology, and biological anthropology. I am a biological anthropologist. My name is Justina Miskovich. I'm a lecturer in biological anthropology here at the Australian National University, and I work in the School of Archaeology and Anthropology. And I will be running the first half of the session today. And we're going to be covering 2 degrees in our webinar, starting with the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science, and then we'll move on to the Master of Applied Anthropology and Participatory Development. So it's terrible pronouncing this. But firstly, before we move on, I have a bit of housekeeping. So if you have any questions during the webcast, please submit them through the Q&A function, just like we already had one participant submit the question. So because otherwise we won't be able to see them if you post them in the chat window. So as long as we're all on the same page, I think we can go ahead and get started. So, and before I show you a brief presentation about the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science, I also just wanted to introduce one of our master's students, Natalia Diaz.
Good afternoon.
So Natalia is a student who is an international student who's studying with us, and you've been here for how long now?
8 months.
About 8 months, yes. So, and Natalia actually moved from Brazil to Canberra. So we're hoping that she can give you some more insights into what our master program is all about from a student perspective. So you not just have me, the academic, talking about it. So what I will do first is give you a bit of a background kind of as to what we do in our program. So what I will do now is put up a PowerPoint presentation. So what you will see are just some PowerPoint slides, and then I'll just continue talking about them. So I'll try and do that for about 10 minutes. And then once I've gone through it and you have a decent introduction into the program, you can then ask me further questions, and then we can have a bit of a conversation if you like, or just keep it flexible. Okay, so just bear with me one moment whilst I put this up. Okay, hopefully everyone can now see a screen that's showing 2 kind of small windows, with the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science and then the advanced version of that. Yep, hopefully it's fine. If you have any problems as I'm going through this, please do post them in the Q&A function so that I can address them. But I'm just going to assume that everything's okay. All right, so I don't want to kind of talk, too much about the dry side of things, but really what we've got running here at the Australian National University is a brand new program that essentially started this year. We basically have had our first cohort of postgraduate students take the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science this year in 2018. And it is essentially the only program as such in the whole of Australia, if not beyond, so potentially even Australasia. And the very unique aspect of this program really is that what we're doing is combining archaeological sciences with biological anthropology perspectives. And so what that means is that you're actually exposed to a bunch of different theoretical and practical aspects of studying what it means to be human. Now, I want to give you obviously a bit more information on this as I'm going through this presentation. But yeah, like I say, if there's any questions afterwards, just do let me know. Okay, so what some of you may have already seen if you've been doing some research online, particularly thinking about coming to the ANU potentially for your postgraduate study, you would have probably come across a program called Master of Biological Anthropology, and then another one, Master of Archaeological Science. So essentially, those 2 programs no longer exist. We only have what we call advanced version of them. But what we've done is basically merged or combined these kind of older versions of these master's programs into the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science. So what's really exciting about this new program is that if you're interested in biological anthropology, and if you're interested in archaeological science, but you also are interested in kind of other aspects of the study of humans, from an archaeological or biological perspective, this program essentially offers you that. So you can pick from lots of different courses that have more of an archaeological background, or courses that are a little bit more about the biology of humans or other non-human primates, and basically combine them all and get a really nice holistic training in a Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science. But what you can also do is actually pick one of the specializations that we have on offer, and I'll talk about them in just a second. Oops, sorry, I keep going through this too fast, I think. And the slide that you've got up on the screen at the moment, it's just very much what we've done here is giving you a snapshot of the sort of theoretical and kind of conceptual training that we're trying to achieve with this program. And we felt that combining archaeological science and biological anthropology can really help us achieve this, to really try and understand what it is that makes us human. And we can really only fully understand it by exploring both the past and the present of the humanity, where aspects of our biology, culture, society, evolution, and behavior are all combined. So if you were just to do a biological anthropology degree or just archaeological science, you'd be potentially missing out on a couple of other facets, to understand humans that we now otherwise offer as part of this program. Now, those of you who are logged in for this session, I'd like to think that you already are interested in the ANU, and I don't blame you, because it is a fantastic place to be. I actually moved from the UK here about 3 years ago now, and this is quite possibly, the best decision I've ever made as an academic, as a scientist. We are, the world's leading university for archaeology, for teaching, and for research. But when it comes to biological anthropology, we're actually pretty much the only university in the whole of of Australia where we have a dedicated program for biological anthropology research and teaching, where we combine lots of different aspects of the discipline. Now, people who make up the department, or more specifically our school, and particularly sort of within the archaeology and biological anthropology sections, we're all sort of without sounding like we all know we're very amazing, but we have a bunch of award-winning educators. We have researchers who are constantly engaged in addressing research questions that are really hotly debated in the field. We publish in high impact journals, and as you probably also already know from the research that you would have done, ANU is of course a research intensive university. So one of our I guess bigger aims as educators running this master's program is really trying to train you for future research, or wherever really you want to end up taking your training. But we do place quite a lot of emphasis on really exposing you to the research that we ourselves undertake, and then involving you in some of the projects that we're running, and offering kind of practical and theoretical training. And I guess the really exciting thing about our program as well is that because we do combine archaeology and biological anthropology, we not only cover the theoretical lecture components, but we do also have a lot of lab intensive courses, and as well as a bunch of different field schools that you can go to. So it should really satisfy lots of different interests, and Okay, so I just want to go into the specializations that we have on offer as part of our program. Now, there's several of them, and to be more specific, there are 4. And what makes this, I guess, exciting for you as a prospective student is that the specialization that you see and that I'm going to talk you through, whichever one you kind of complete, that's something that actually gets printed on your transcript once you finish, which means that by the end of your master training, not only you say that you've done a program in archaeological and evolutionary science, but you actually can say that you've done a bunch of courses that are really highly specialized, and they have led you to having, a certain expertise at that master level, in a certain area. So on offer, we have what's as follows, what you should see on your screen. We've got primate and human behavior specialization, bioarchaeology and forensic anthropology, human evolution, and then environmental archaeology and climate change. Now, I don't want to kind of talk too much about this, so I'll go through some of the key, I guess, interesting aspects of each of the specializations. And I just wanted to also say at this stage that I can't really cover too much on the archaeology side of things, because I'm actually not an archaeologist myself, but I will give you some context at the end for other co-conveners of the program who should be able to handle some of your more specific questions that just relate to archaeological sciences. Oh, I keep pressing that, but it's not. Okay, so moving into the primate and human behavior specialization. Now, the three key scientists or academics engaged in kind of teaching and running this specialization are Jeff Kushnick, Dr. Alison Behe, and then Anya Depper, who are biological anthropologists at the ANU. And I don't know how well you can see this on your screen of what I'm showing now, but we're actually showing you here an example of the different courses that you could take that can make up this specialization. Now, as you can also see from the pictures that you've got on the screen, this is a specialization that very much relates to the living, which includes living humans as well as what we call non-human primates, so monkeys, apes, but it's really all about looking at the behavior and the ecology of those living animals and trying to understand the behavioral choices or patterns from an evolutionary and biological perspective. And we, like as I was saying earlier, we do have field schools that you could participate in to look at this sort of research. Here's a couple of examples of publications and research projects that we have in the school that fall under this category of primate and human behavior. And this is just to give you a snapshot of the sort of research questions that can be investigated. But also, I think what's exciting about this specialization is that it does have a pretty significant applications and implications for living humans, and of course, as I was saying, non-human primates, especially when we're considering monkeys that are highly endangered. So conservation science. So if anyone of you is interested in those sorts of questions, this is probably a specialization for you. I am just going to go forward because it's already 1:15, so I don't want to take up too much time. And the second option that you could consider is the bioarchaeology and forensic anthropology specialization. I am actually personally involved in also sort of making up the academic kind of expertise in this one, along with Professor Mark Oxenham. And this specialization really is all about skeletal tissues, all about the human skeleton, the bones, the teeth, but really what's so I guess that's the uniting sort of theme where, we try to teach you the macroscopic and microscopic variation and anatomy of the human skeleton. So that's really, I guess our job is to give you that training and that knowledge and the understanding of that in a very intensive kind of practical setting. But what we then do as part of this specialization is also train you in applying this knowledge and your skills in lots of different areas where you need this sort of knowledge. So one of them, of course, is bioarchaeology, which is the study of the lives and lifestyles and the diseases of ancient humans from archaeological contexts, and then also the forensic anthropology aspect, where we're more interested in trying to figure out the medical and sort of legal aspects of people who recently deceased. And here's just also, a couple of examples of the sort of research questions and projects that we'd have running in the school. Here's, an example of a question, linear enamel hyperplasia and aged death in a medieval cemetery back in Europe. So we can train you in examining human teeth for markers of what we call physiological stress, to then try and reconstruct how much physiological stress a population would have undergone back in the Middle Ages, but also that forensic aspect of what we're doing. Here you can see a couple of examples of papers that we did recently, looking at estimating stature from different body parts to try and basically improve forensic methods in Australia. And Our next specialization, and I'm almost done, is the human evolution specialization. And for that, we predominantly have a paleoanthropologist, Dr. Catherine Bailolia, who does a lot of teaching and research in this area. And this specialization really is all about human evolution. So where we've come from, the past 7 to 8 million years of the fossil record, we have a fantastic collection of hominin skulls at the ANU, and you can study a bunch of different aspects of the fossil record as part of this specialization. One of the examples that I really wanted to talk about today is, I'm sure you've all heard of the Hobbit, or the Homo floresiensis hominin that was uncovered in Indonesia several years ago now. We actually are also home to Dr. Debbie Argy, who's a research fellow here, who has been very intensively studying this species the past several years. So being based at the ANU in Australia is a very good location for these sorts of questions. And Dr. Bailolia herself studies aspects of sexual selection and behavior in hominin fossils by looking at the skeletal morphology. Last but not least, and then we'll move on, and actually I can already see that we have a question coming in, so I'll try and address that in basically just a couple of minutes. I already mentioned I won't be able to go into too much detail on the kind of archaeological science side of things because it's not really my expertise. So I want to tell you, I don't want to say anything that's potentially wrong, but I will give you contact details. But the final specialization that you may be interested in is actually environmental and climate change, which is very purely a lot of archaeological science, and it's very much a combination of fieldwork and that sort of lab training, and there are multiple specialist pathways that you can engage in as part of this specialization. This includes scientific dating, geoarchaeology, zooarchaeology, and a lot of students who do end up participating or taking this specialization, they often end up going into archaeological practice, sort of aspects of their careers. And here is a snapshot of all the different archaeology staff that we have in the school. There's all of the names are listed there. If you do a really quick Google search online, you should be able to locate everyone easily, and the email addresses. The conveners of the Master of Archaeological and Evolutionary Science, this specialization of climate change, are Associate Professor Philip Piper, as well as Dr. Guillaume Moll. So you may be interested in talking to them a little bit more about this. But here's just a couple of more examples of what sorts of courses we cover as part of that specialization. There's classes such as microanalysis in archaeological science, where not only we look at the microstructure of animal samples, but also material culture from archaeological contexts, so pots, coins, lots of different aspects of material culture that are excavated as part of archaeological excavations. But of course, don't underestimate this, because like I was saying, it's not all just about picking one specialization and sticking to it. The beauty of this program is that you can actually pick and choose lots of different courses that overall give you that holistic training in becoming a master of archaeological and evolutionary science. Here's just a couple of field schools that we also run through our archaeology staff at the ANU, and it's all very exciting, covering lots of different areas of the world. We have field sites that are a bit more local, such as a field school in Tasmania, but we also have a bunch of places in Germany and the Philippines, as well as Vanuatu. So quite a lot of exciting hands-on, practical experience in the field. This is just the final slide talking about the different graduate pathways that you can then take. Lots of our students go into kind of lab-based, experience or careers. You can stay in academia, continue doing research. You can work in a museum as a curator. We try to kind of give you a bunch of different training skills, and just to give you the experience that hopefully satisfies your interests. And this is just the final slide showing you where to find us on social media. So we're very active on Twitter and on Facebook, so please do feel free to follow us. And then here's also the academic contacts, so myself at the bottom, Guillaume, Alison, and then Phil Piper, who would be, I'm sure, happy to also answer some more of your questions. Okay, now we have had a couple of questions come through, so I'm just going to minimize this window. And then I'll just go back into Yeah, okay, there we go. I think we're back. All right, so that was basically 15 minutes of me just going through the program. I hope it wasn't too much information to take in a short space of time. Now, we have had a question come through from, we don't have the name, but hello, anonymous attendee. Now, we have a question here. What is your favorite thing about researching what you do? Now, I think at this stage I should try and probably get Natalia to give some insights into this, because when I was introducing myself, I didn't tell you that by training and by passion, I am a histologist. So I actually engage in microstructural analyses of biological human tissues, and I apply my expertise to archaeological populations, to living humans, as well as other animals. And Natalia is actually going to work with me for her research thesis next year. So would you like to tell everyone why is it that you find what you do interesting?
I'll tell first about my
Absolutely.
experience, because I think it's important. I hold a bachelor degree in archaeology and anthropology. And I used to work as a professional archaeologist in Brazil. And I chose this degree because as an archaeologist, it's important when you are in the field and doing excavations, ask the correct questions for the material. What should we ask for skeleton or for latex? What's the different approach to different materials? And how should we proceed in different cases? And I think this master is very cool because I'm studying bioarchaeology with Justina, but I still had courses in environmental archaeology and climate change. So I think I learned a lot in this year.
Oh, good. Yeah, we just had actually another question come through, and it's actually for Natalia. Why did you choose ANU over somewhere else? Because I was saying Natalia came from Brazil.
Yeah, I think there are two key things that make me decide about ANU. First, because I knew it's such a good place to study, and the program is exactly what I'm searching, what I'm looking for. And second, because Australia is a great place to live.
It's really nice here, isn't it? And like I said, coming from Europe, it's very unique here, I think.
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. Fantastic. So Natalia, so what is your favorite thing about researching? Because as I was saying, Natalia is sort of specializing in bioarchaeology. So what do you find most interesting about this?
I think it's the opportunity to study something so different, and it's unique because we are dealing with past populations, and it's pretty amazing, I think.
Okay. We also had a question that I didn't address yet. So what prompted us to go into biological anthropology / anthropology in general? That is a fantastic question. And I was really hoping someone would ask that question. Biological anthropology is very much the only discipline out there. I mean, I am biased, obviously, so don't quote me on that. But it is really the only scientific discipline that is actually also grounded within social science and arts and humanities approaches. Whilst we do study humans, as animals, so we're interested in the biology, we're interested in understanding their ecology and the behavioral choices, what they look like, how they behave, in that evolutionary framework, we have to remember that they are still humans. So they come from cultures, they come from groups of humans that, they are not just lab rats. They are not kind of, lab mice that we have an experimental context for. There are so many different variables that make us who we are as humans that we really can only fully understand that through multidisciplinary kind of collaborative approaches. So for example, in my own research, where, as I was saying, I actually utilize quite a what I call hard science technique, i.e. histological sectioning that you'd see on a daily basis in hospitals, that's what doctors do. They'll take a biopsy, look under the microscope and see what's happening, what changes we see to the tissue. Now I use that, but I apply it to these archaeological populations, and in order for me to really reconstruct that growth of these people from these kind of ancient populations, I also need to dip into medieval literature, for example. So when I was doing my PhD back in the UK, I spent half the time basically in the lab processing samples, and then the other half in the Canterbury Cathedral, reading medieval archival work to try and figure out how populations were living, what sort of lifestyles they were engaging in, and so on. And it's exactly the same thing that we do here.
I think the best thing about anthropology in general is that it's very diverse. We are studying the human existence, so we can ask everything. If you have the correct methods to answer, you can ask everything you want.
I think I really agree with Natalia. I think the really exciting thing about biological anthropology is that you can pretty much do anything as long as it's.
And if you think about anthropology, it's not only the biological anthropology, but archaeology.
Absolutely,
it includes demography, ethnography, archaeology, bioarchaeology. It's very diverse.
Absolutely. So we do work with, a bunch of different theoretical ideas, and we borrow, if you like.
And another good thing, there is no correct answer for the research. So it's amazing because you can answer the same question for 2 different ways.
Yeah. And I think that really nicely wraps up and answers why we picked biological anthropology. At this stage, I think we should probably, as much as I'm really enjoying talking to you, and I'm sure you're enjoying listening to us. So I guess we still have a couple of minutes until it's past, and before I let Patrick take over. Natalia, is there anything else you'd like to tell? So, coming here as an international student to the ANU, do you have any final messages or anything you'd like to say?
Yeah. I'm having a great time here. I really recommend the master and everything. It's really nice in all aspects. I'm learning a lot.
Fantastic. I really hope she's not saying it just because I'm here. But I think we have a good time here, and we really, and I think especially coming, from the perspective as a PhD supervisor, as a master's research supervisor.
There's another question.
We've got another question coming. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's great to be able to work with students who are very enthusiastic and have these really exciting research ideas. We're almost done. We have about a minute left, but we've got just one more question. What advice would you give to people if they're still on the fence?
I think...
In 1 minute, what would you say?
Read a lot.
So basically do a little bit more, I guess, research into it, and then I would probably say really think about what really drives you. Is there a biological or kind of biological anthropology question that you're thinking, and then you're going, all right, I think I can do this at the ANU. But I think fundamentally, when you're considering coming to picking universities or thinking about your future career and your training, really, as I think in terms of ranking, when it comes to our disciplines that we have in the school, and for biological anthropology, you have biological anthropologists, you have archaeologists contributing to this discipline, we've got anthropologists. We are consistently ranked in the top 20, kind of universities for disciplines, for anthropology and archaeology all over the world. I mean, I know that rankings, we can kind of think about it from lots of different perspectives, but it's because we have researchers who have the skills, who have the training, who are here, we're enthusiastic, and we want to involve you and train you to the best of our possibilities and our abilities, really. So I think that's why I applied for my job here. I was coming because it's the ANU. It's great. It's fantastic. Lots of opportunities.
For study, for research, for everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. It's 12:30 now, so I think what we are going to do is, at this stage, thank you very much for your attention, and thanks, Natalia, for taking the time to chat to everyone. You can easily find my email address online, and I'm sure Natalia wouldn't mind chatting to you either.
Yeah,
as I said, do follow us on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and if there's any other questions, we'll hopefully address them via emails. But at this stage, we will hand over to Patrick, who will talk to you about the other master program that we're covering as part of our webinar. And I think that's it for me. Thank you. Okay. So I just minimize this. That's it. Okay, so we're just going to play this in the background whilst we do the changeover. Okay. So we have to go this way.
Yeah, welcome everybody. My name's Patrick Kilby and I'm the convener of the Master of Applied Anthropology and Participatory Development. I hope that little promo we made gives you a little bit of a taste of what we do, but now I will probably go into a little bit more detail. Now, this program is taught across campus, so it's taught by both the College of Arts and Social Sciences and by the College of Asia Pacific. And that's important because it gives a very broad set of academics to teach you. And so it has a strong focus on Asia Pacific. Even though it's a Master of Applied Anthropology, it's taught by both anthropologists and geographers. And in fact, myself, I'm more of a political scientist. And we're a development studies type program, so our competitor programs may call themselves Masters of International Development or Masters of Development Studies. Like the other courses presented, we're very highly ranked. We're ranked #1 in Australia, and it goes between about number 8 and 10 in the world. So having a high ranking comes by the fact that we have some of the leading development practitioners in Australia teaching. And the other part of that, as I just said, we're practitioners mainly. So I came to the ANU after 20 years working with an Australian NGO. Colleagues are doing development work for government, for the UN, for the World Bank, for a number of development agencies. And so part of our strength is that you're taught by practitioners who work in the field all the time. So the other strength of the program is taught both online and on campus. So you can undertake the course from anywhere in the world, and we've had people do the course from Europe. We've even had people do the course from an Australian Navy ship sailing the Indian Ocean. So you literally can do the course from almost anywhere, provided you have workable internet. And so that restricts a couple of places, but most places you can do it from. The course structure is you can register to do the course online. It's MAAPD-OL or on campus MAAPD. They're very similar. The main difference with the online course is you can only do the online course if you already have what they call a cognate degree, which is basically a degree in the social sciences. And on the website, there's a list of cognate degrees. If you don't have a cognate degree, you can only do it on campus, and you do another 24 units of courses to make sure you cover the curriculum well enough. And if you have a 4-year degree, like an honours degree or a graduate diploma on top of a cognate degree, then the course can be undertaken over 1 year full time, where it's 48 units. So that's just a little bit of a background as to getting into the program and the various options you have. We have 2 specialisations. So we have the main program, but if you wish to specialise in society and environment, you can. That looks at environmental issues around development, or you can look at Indigenous policy, which is focused on Indigenous Australians, and that's mainly aimed at people who wish to work in Indigenous Australia. But we have structured the course so it's easier to navigate, in the sense that we've identified a whole bunch of themes, and we clump courses according to those themes. Now, you don't have to strictly follow a particular theme, but you can see what's involved in the gender theme or the humanitarian theme. And that way you can see how you can structure a program to follow your interest. And then how the program actually works is relatively simple. Basically, you have 2 research training courses which are compulsory. One's called, the shorthand is social mapping. which works out how you look at communities, how you identify their needs and their issues, and techniques to do that. And the second one is social impact, where we look at methods and techniques to look at the impact of development work. In addition to those courses, there's what we call research courses, and there's about 6 to choose from, ranging from gender and development in practice, courses like that. And you have to do 2 of those, but of course you can do the others as well. And then after that, we then do the rest of your program can be made up of picking the rest of your courses from among the various themes we have on offer. We actually have internships available. Now they can be with the Australian Internship Program, or we have our own internship course where you will find the course and you will find a partner interning organisation, and you can arrange with them some internship tasks to do. And then part of that is a research paper you do as part of the assessment for the course. We get regular requests from people who wish to intern with the Asian Development Bank, sometimes with the UN, and sometimes, and most often with NGOs. So that is basically an overview of the program. Now, just who are we and where? Oh, sorry. First of all, I'll just go to jobs. With the jobs, as that little short video we showed indicates, the sky is the limit. So we have people working in the United Nations, we have people working with the World Bank, we have people working with NGOs. We have a lot of people actually find the course is very useful for domestic community organisations, and so we have people working there, as well as Indigenous organisations in Australia and government departments. We have a lot of people, of course, working with DFAT, the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, the official aid program, and we always have students from various NGOs doing the course. The cohort tends to be a little bit older. They tend to be people working in the area, in the field, and that is a strength because the program enables you to learn from each other. But if you enter at a straight out of undergraduate or relatively shortly after, then you're not only taught by a very strong cohort of academics, but you're also taught by a strong cohort of fellow students. And that is another strength of the program. On our website, we have a testimonial page which has around about 40 brief testimonials of where our students end up with. Most end up working in development agencies, working in the field, and they speak very strongly of it. But we also have people join academia. And I know of 4 PhDs out of the program, 3 of whom are at this university, and one's even in this building. But as well as that, there may be others, but we try to keep track through various social media networks. And now, to give you an idea of where people end up, let me talk about myself. I've been working in development for too long. Let's just say this was before undergraduate degrees in development studies, or there weren't many of them, so I did a degree in agricultural science with the idea of working in development. So shortly afterwards, through the degree, I did my own little mini internship programs in Indonesia and in Papua New Guinea, where I joined local NGOs to see what happened. And that was part of an agricultural degree, as I had to write up the agricultural activities I observed. But then after that, I went to Papua New Guinea, worked with the Ministry of Agriculture in Papua New Guinea, and then after that for 3 years. And after that, the next 20 years was spent with Oxfam Australia. And one of the things is the work makes you curious. And so for a while I worked in emergency relief with the Ethiopian famine of the mid-80s. And from that, I asked myself a question. does food aid actually work? And that resulted in a master's thesis on food aid in Africa. And then 10 years after that, where there's a whole lot of empowerment work, I asked myself the question, what's empowerment really about? And does it work? And that led me to my PhD topic on empowering women in India. And my writing always reflects my curiosity. And so I'd worked for 20, 30 years within the Australian Council for International Development. I wrote their history 3 years ago. I come from an agricultural background. My latest research was on the Green Revolution. So some of the things I'm trying to let you know about is the wealth of experience that you can get yourself involved in terms of how a degree in development studies and how a degree in development studies from the ANU can really help you in your work, but also help you in your curiosity. Like my colleagues in bioanthropology, there is no right or wrong answer. My favorite answer to a student question is, well, it depends. It depends on the local context. And a lot of development work talks about doing stuff according to particular ways of doing things. And the program tries to break you out of that. The program tries to have you think about, okay, how is a particular problem solved in a particular context? And because it's called participatory development, our particular focus is always on the local communities. It is always about what is best for the local community. So other development studies programs can look at a program from development economics or a public policy, but ours, we call it anthropology because it looks at the local. It works out how people themselves can solve their own particular issues and their own particular problems, and how we in foreign aid and in development and through government programs, etc., can help people in that work. That's probably enough from me. So if people have particular questions, feel free to type them in. Otherwise, I can just keep talking about where people end up, I think, or other people who teach the course. So we have courses on gender and development taught by gender experts. We have courses taught about environmental issues, and we can have colleagues talk about migration and why that is now such an important issue. And it also gives you an understanding of some of the debates that we see. A lot of the questions we deal with are on the front page of the newspaper every day. And so we end up debating some of the things about migration. We have programs looking at refugees. We look at conflict and development. I'm currently teaching a course on humanitarianism. And so the various humanitarian crises around us, whether it is in Syria or whether it is in Yemen, provide material for us to talk a lot more about why it is so and how do we deal with people caught up in those crises and what is the best way of dealing with them and some of the complexities we have to deal with. The answers are not simple. Often you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. But the answer is we learn about what's happened in the past. Hopefully we learn from those lessons and hopefully we do things better in the future. So just to recap, it's a strong program. It's the largest in the college in terms of enrolments. Development studies at the ANU is ranked #1 in Australia and round about #10 in the world. And you're taught by the very best. and you have as your cohort also among the very best. And so they're just a few reasons as to why you should be doing a Master of Applied Anthropology and Participatory Development at the ANU.